Well, hey there, YouTube. We are glad that you're joining us here on Stephen Bethany's Hopecast YouTube channel, as this is our first kind of foray into this little feature that we're going to be doing now.
Yeah, we wanted to start doing some interviews that are exclusive to our YouTube audience and just bring you guys into a little bit of a different side of the Hopecast. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm excited.
Well, because one of the things that makes our podcast different is we don't usually have guests.
Right.
So
you got to deal with us every week.
Yeah, this is a way of bringing on some guests and finding out some really cool stories of people in their lives, and just some amazing people that you and I have run into and that we've got scheduled coming up. And today is our very first kind of Stephen Bethany chat.
Yeah, I know. We need to maybe have like a little, I don't know, like a neon sign behind us, like this is a late night chat show or something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That's the feeling that I feel like we need.
We should have had this discussion before we taped.
It's like we should have prepped this a little bit more.
We should have prepped it a little more. But we want to welcome in our guest. Let's welcome in Stephanie Rodgers. Yay! Hey, Stephanie, how are
Stephanie.
you?
Hey guys, how are y'all?
We're doing good.
Great.
It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so here's the thing about what we're going to do with this particular episode. We're going to get to know Stephanie a little bit because she's got an amazing story. And Stephanie, I guess probably the easiest thing to call you, or the best thing to call you, is an advocate for not only foster care, but for adoption as well.
Absolutely.
So tell us your story.
So a little bit about my story is from the age of 5, I grew up in foster care. There are two types of different placements in foster care. There is through DCFS, and then there is private placement, and I was a private placement child. And in that situation, DCF is not involved. So I went through the Arkansas Baptist Children's Homes and Family Ministries. And whenever I was 5 years old, there was a church that made it their mission to go out and reach the unchurched people. So my mom did not step on a door. We didn't go to a carnival. We weren't on a list. They just literally, Parkway Place Baptist Church, Reverend Wilson and his wife and that gang went out, and they knocked on a little white door, and there we were with my mom and 2 other siblings. And we grew a relationship with them very quickly. And my mom confided in the pastor and his wife and let them know that where we were living was not a safe place. There was abuse, neglect, and the pastor knew that he could call the Arkansas Baptist Children's Homes and Family Ministries, and that they would have an avenue for us to go. To do something, you never know what's going to happen. And just lo and behold, there was a Baptist preacher and his wife, and they were praying for foster children. Wow. And let me rephrase that. They were praying for a foster child, and they got the phone call that there was a sibling group of 3 that needed immediate placement. And Vern and Vicky, they prayed, and they decided that they would meet us, and me and my mom and my brother and my sister and my caseworker, Rose Jones. We all went and met Vicky and Vern, and it was a really, really neat experience. I was 5 years old, so I didn't know what to take in. I just knew that we were meeting these people. And shortly after, we went to go live, very shortly after, we went to go live with Vern and Vicky as their foster children.
So correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
but I feel like your story is different from maybe other people that grew up in foster care, because I feel like when I've heard those stories, oftentimes the parents are not even remotely involved with where their kids end up going, and it's kind of out of their control. And so what I'm picking up from your story is like your mom was aware of this and had some I guess of an idea of where you were going. And so how did that play into how you felt of leaving your mom's home and going to this other family?
So oftentimes in foster placements, the parents also had grown up a particular way. And my mother also grew up in foster care. So back in the 50s, whenever there weren't very many regulations, and she had a horrible experience. So that kind of went into play with why she wanted to do the private placement rather than going through the actual system. And I think that that's where God put the hope in her, is like, wow, there's not just one choice, there's another choice as well. And I think that for me, just as an adult, as a 45-year-old mama that loves her, Mama Bear, I could see how she truly put care into where we were going. Although she was not able to be a good mom, she was able to make a good decision.
Wow. I mean, you got a bright smile, and you just one of these people that people are drawn to. But your life and you're growing up, it wasn't as easy as it may seem like in that first statement, was it?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I have shared a million times that I moved 14 times in 10 years.
Wow.
From 5 to 15 years old, whenever I was in care, I moved from my foster family. My foster family was ready to adopt, and we were unadoptable. And I know that sounds crazy to some people, but either your parents lose their rights or they give them up. And for me, neither one of my parents would do that. So that left us kind of in what I would call a limbo. And we were unable to be adopted. So we were with my foster family for 5 years. That is a long time to be with a foster family.
Well, yeah, I mean, most foster families wouldn't even do that,
Yes.
would they? I mean, consider to have a child that long, right?
Well,
without adopting?
Absolutely. So they went to court, and they did try to adopt us, even regardless of the unadoption. But because of the stipulations, they just weren't able to. So we, through the children's home, they have campuses as well for residential at the time. And so what that looks like is in Monticello, they have a few, but in Monticello, it's 80 acres. They had a horse program and all these different houses, and there was house parents, and there are other foster children that live there as well. And so we, after 5 years, we went to the children's home in Monticello, and I guess I was about 10 years old whenever we showed up, and I still remember the day, and I was walking up to the thing, and I just remembered the loss. Just that feeling of my mom left me, my dad left me, now my foster family's leaving me. Now I gotta live in this dorm-like setting with these other kids, with all these, some of them, had legitimate issues, but I just didn't have a mom or a dad that could take care of me. And some of them were the same, but I remember the loss. I remember, I do recall walking the sidewalk going into that, to the children's home.
So how long were you in the children's home from that point? So you went in when you were 10. Were you there until you left the foster care system?
So at the children's home, I was there for about a year and a half. And then I think we might have had one visit with my mom, and she decided that it was time for us to come home. She had gotten things together. And for her, that was a new boyfriend. And he was an attorney, and, things on the outside looked really good. I was so excited that we were going to be able to go home to live with my mom. People don't think about this part of it, and I don't know that I've ever mentioned it before, but when you're away from your mom or your dad, Dad was out of the picture completely because he was addicted to drugs and alcohol. He lived in Maryland where we were born. But you don't get to call anybody mom. So whenever I went to go live with my mom, I know I bugged her to death because I said, hey, Mom, Mom, is there anything I need to do? Hey, Mom, it was such a need that I had in my life to call someone mom because I knew I had a mom. I just wasn't able to
You didn't get to use that word.
Yeah, absolutely. So living with my mom was great. I remember mayonnaise sandwiches and Swiss cheese and school, and she got us set up. Everything looked great. I guess it was about 6 months into it that my stepdad started to molest me. So I started acting out after that. Hey, I'm about 12 years old. Things just weren't great. I started doing bad in school. I was the one that he picked on. So my brother and sister also had the freedom to do whatever they wanted, because then my mom started going out drinking at night, and they would just come home at different times. And it was a really, really hard time for me. So, of course, I got into a lot of trouble.
Did you ever end up telling your mom about the abuse that you experienced?
I did not. I shared a little bit about how he allowed me to drink alcohol. And she said that that was not true. So I didn't even expound on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If she didn't believe you in that one area, why share anything
Not at all.
else?
And I didn't share with anybody else. Speaking of alcohol, by the age of 13, I was in rehab for drinking, and getting in trouble at school for drinking. And I was just really, self-medicating, just trying to get out of the environment as much as I could, and just rebelling completely. We snuck out, and they put locks on the doors so that we couldn't get out of the doors, locks on the windows so that we couldn't get out of the window. I mean, they just tried to cage us in. And long story short, Rose Jones from the Arkansas Baptist Children's Homes got wind, because I was in rehab, that things weren't going good. So they came and did a home visit, and they were like, yeah, it's time. My sister had run away. I think my brother had run away as well. So it was just me at that point, I think, at the house. And so because I had gotten in so much trouble, normally that would be not a situation that you could go back to the children's home. The children's home, they say the doors lock on the inside. You're more than welcome to leave. It's really a place where children that just need a home, that just need foster parents, that are, of course there's, other things that go into it. There's kids that get in trouble. They're kids. But I was at a different level, because I had been hospitalized, and I had been expelled from school. And really, I just keep looking at your sign about hope. And there was really no hope in my heart. And I was fussing about it. I was like, I don't want to go back to the children's home. But in my heart, I was like, please let me go.
Yeah. I can't even imagine it, because as horrible as that story is, you go at 15 and you're out on your own at 15 years old?
Yes, moving around back and forth, foster care to children's home. And I had gotten in trouble one too many times. We laughed so much that I was the disciplined person. Truly was the discipline problem. But I had gotten in trouble one too many times. And because I was a private placement, the only option was to go back home rather than through DCFS. So I did have to go back home. My mom was still working for the attorney. They were not together as a couple anymore. So she had an apartment downtown Little Rock. And I remember walking in the door with my trash bags full of clothes, because I didn't have enough luggage to pack up that quick to get gone. And I walked in her law office, and she knew I was coming. And he, or she rather, scolded me. She got on to me because I had gotten in trouble at the foster family. And I'm not a big crier. Like, I just don't cry that often. I just remember breaking down in tears. And she actually hugged me, and she said, okay, I've got this apartment, you can stay there. She was living with another boyfriend but had her own apartment. And she bought me a ham once a week. Said that she didn't have time to take me to school, which at that point I was 15. I didn't really care. Yeah. And then just kind of visited here and there to change her clothes if she needed to.
So you essentially lived on your own.
Absolutely.
Like, very independent from your mom.
Yes.
So what were the next steps after that? You're in this apartment, pretty much living as an adult, as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Where did you find yourself after that?
Okay, so my only requirement for a young man was that he had a car, because I didn't have a car.
Right.
And so a nice-looking young lady downtown Little Rock, and then my sister kind of reunited with me a little bit, and she introduced me to someone, and we got together. And from 15, we were married. We dated for 2 years, and were married for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And we had 2 beautiful kids, but it was chaos. It was just complete. And it wasn't just me. It was him. It wasn't just him. It was both of us. We were like oil on water. And I just didn't know. I didn't know how to be a wife and how to be a mom. And I messed up a lot. And so did he. And long story short, after 10 years, we divorced.
Well, and I don't mean this to be funny, but how in the world are you still alive?
Honestly,
I mean, when you start talking about the lack of hope in your life, how in the world did Jesus find you? Where were you at in the midst of all of this chaos that you were able to find something that you could really have hope in for once in your life?
This is the so cool part of the story. So after we divorced, I was working in insurance, and I had a good friend, and she had a cousin that had recently divorced, and we met, and we really liked each other a lot. Neither one of us were living for the Lord, and we got an apartment. I had, of course, my 2 daughters, and he had a son, and we moved in together. And just not living for the Lord, not looking for a Bible, not looking for a church. And one day I'm folding his laundry, and his son's camp shirt was on the bed. And it was Pine Grove Baptist Church. And Pine Grove Baptist Church was where Vicki and Vern, where I grew up my entire childhood as the PK. And I'm like, what do you know about Pine Grove Baptist Church? He's like, well, that's where I was saved. That's where I gave my heart to the Lord. And I'm like, really? And we had a good discussion about that. And the Lord we didn't know it at the time, but the Lord started taking things away from us. We both were employed, but God started taking, just little things away to where we had to move. And we moved on Lawson Road in this little rent house. It was the only thing that we could afford, and I don't even think it was $400 a month, but it would fit all of us. And the woman that rented it to us was just a sweet, sweetheart. Anyway, long story short, on Wednesdays they would come and get our kids for church. On the church bus, because there was a church right down the street, and every week I remember them saying, y'all should come to church, and we knew that I knew I was supposed to be at church. He knew he was supposed to be at church, but we just chose not to for a long time. But one Sunday we decided, we were like, okay, we're going to go to church. The kids love the church. We're going to go. And I walked in, and there was Miss Ruth. I know that every church has a Miss Ruth because I've been to a lot of churches. But she came to me and she hugged me and she said, I love you. Now, I had been everywhere in my life where people had said, I loved you. And true love, growing up, I mean, there were truly people that loved me. And there was something different about Miss Ruth that I needed to come back. So we started coming back every Sunday, and I would say I was the charger on it. And we started coming back, and long story short, I walked down the aisle one day, and I said, after bare knuckle in the pews for quite a long time, I said, Brother Larry, I need to rededicate my life, because I knew the Christianese.
Right.
I knew that I had said that I loved Jesus. I knew that I had been baptized as a child. So I'm rededicating my life, And I walked down the aisle, and I went home, and anybody that knows me, I'm getting better at it, but I'm not a great cook. But I was making sandwiches, for everybody, and the Lord just didn't settle my heart. And I just got on my knees, and I just asked the Lord to forgive me and just to take over my entire life. And he did. And he did in such a powerful way. I just felt like such a burden was released in me. And almost automatically, he reminded me of the children's home and Vicki and Vern, because I had forgotten about them. I was distant from them for so long. And God just charged my life. I mean, there is not a second that has went by in my life that I haven't been not only grateful for foster care, but grateful for the way that my life transacted, because I don't know that I would have came to Christ any other way. And I'm just grateful. And he put a charge in my heart to advocate for kids that can't talk for themselves. And it's just a unique thing. I'll share one story and I'll be quiet. We went. I know I could talk all day about this, but there was this little boy. We went to go visit the children's home. We go very often, and he was looking down. He was showing me his bedroom. He was looking down, no eye contact or anything, and he was showing me his little toys. And I said to the young man, I said, my name is Stephanie. I grew up here. I grew up on this very campus in foster care. And his big brown eyes just opened up, and he looked at me, and he was side by side with me the whole day. And I'll remember that for the rest of my life, because that's what I want to be as a person. I want to be side by side with people, just teaching them not only about Jesus, but about foster care and how God can do anything with anybody he wants to. If he's going to take this little girl out of this white little house that was completely dysfunctional, on no list at all, and save my soul 23 years later and give me the beautiful life that I have now, it's not without challenges. We were talking earlier, you've got to stay in God's word. You've got to stay in prayer, but my salvation is secure, and it is a good thing.
Well, you are an absolute joy. Stephanie Rodgers joining us here. What an amazing story. And the thing that I think I pull out more than anything else about this little girl who had such a dysfunctional life, who had every reason in the world to hate God and to hate other people and to be felt like she was left out, was Miss Ruth.
Yeah.
It wasn't a pastor.
Right.
It wasn't someone who, witnessed to her. It was someone who came up to her and gave her a hug and told her that she really loved her. And that, to me, spoke volumes.
Well, I feel like that's a challenge that all of us can take on, is that we should be that person where no matter who or what kind of person walks through the doors of our church, we should be willing and ready to walk up and start a conversation with anybody. And so that's encouraging for me. And Stephanie, I would just ask you kind of to wrap up, where are you at now? What are you doing, and what's kind of next in your life?
So Shane and I have been married now for 17 years.
Amazing.
Congratulations. Yeah.
It is us. I have adopted my stepson. We have one daughter together who is 15, and then I have two daughters myself. We live in Pine Bluff, and we have a company in Benton. We build fence, and it's just not only fence relationships as well. So it's
Bending fences and relationships. I love that.
absolutely, absolutely. I could tell you a million stories on that.
I'll bet. That's so exciting, though. And I love what the Lord has done truly through your life, and just your willingness to be transparent and to share your story with us. That's a powerful thing.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. What a great way to start our YouTube series,
I know.
right?
I love this. It's not a competition, but people are going to have to top this story.
That's exactly right.
This is amazing.
So we're going to be having more guests here on our YouTube channel coming up in the next few weeks. Just keep checking back with us. And, of course, you can also find the link to Steve and Bethany's Hopecast. We do a weekly podcast that takes on the tough questions of life and faith. And we have special guests like Stephanie. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So
We're
thank you
thankful.
for watching. Yeah. So we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, guys.